Welcome to Fireside Nets, your number one Brooklyn Nets podcast for news, reactions, breakdowns, therapy, and so much more. I'm riding solo tonight. Nick's busy with rehearsal. Big show from my brother, the co-host of the show. He's got a comedy sketch show in the city this weekend. I mostly blame myself at the Players Theater. Tickets are still on sale, I believe, Friday show and Saturday show. So check that out. I do not have to rehearse for that show. What I have to do is record a podcast. And you know what? First time in a while, I get to record a Nets podcast after a Brooklyn Nets win. That's right. The Brooklyn Nets head up to Toronto, and immediately they become the king of the North. Realistically, it was the Nets B team versus the Raptors C team. No Scotty Barnes, no Emmanuel Quickly, no RJ Barrett for the Raptors. I'm sure I'm missing some other names, but those are the three big ones that come to mind. So those three guys did not play. And for the Nets, no Cam Thomas. Had a little bit of lower back pain prior to the game, so he did not suit up. No Cam Johnson, obviously no Ben Simmons, and no Dennis Smith Jr. for this one. So Nets were light on guys. They called up guard Jacob Gilyard, number 14. He's 5'8", out of Richmond. He played a little bit in Memphis earlier this year. They called him up. He's a two-way player. But overall, with everything going on, with all the rumors, and we're going to get into it because there's a lot going on with the Brooklyn Nets right now. They got to win. They got to win. Not the prettiest win, probably the ugliest win, but a win nonetheless. So let's look at the box score and let's focus on some guys who played really well. Because I watched this game from start to finish, and I'll tell you this: the difference in this game was former Toronto Raptor Dennis Schroeder. So shout out to Schroeder for getting his revenge. Dennis the Menace, 19 points for Schroeder, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 7 to 15 from the field. Clutch buckets down the stretch when nobody on the Nets really wanted to score tonight. No player was above 20. Trendon Watford also finished with 19 points off the bench. Strong performance for Watford, 7 of 10 from the field, 7 rebounds. He did have 5 personal fouls. Overall, though, Watford showing you that, hey, when you guys play me, when you give me minutes, I'm aggressive. I can get to the rim. I can score. I can hit the occasional three. I have a pretty high IQ when it comes to the offensive end. And defensively, I don't think Watford's a slouch. So I like that we saw him tonight. I'm glad he got some minutes with Dennis Smith Jr. sitting this one out. And Schroeder, on a team where Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, those 4 guys are supposed to be our best player. Dennis Schroeder has come in here and consistently been the best offensive weapon for the Nets consistently since All-Star break. I don't know if the numbers would prove that, but when the Nets have needed a big basket, when they've needed a clutch play, Dennis Schroeder is the only one who's stepped up and really given them that in their few wins. So take that for what you will, but I like what Schroeder's given this team. Despite some inconsistent play, despite some turnovers, he does get a little bit ball hoggish at times. He can kind of dominate with the ball in his hands, but nobody else on this Nets team is making offense. Nobody else is cooking up anything, especially with Cam Thomas out. So shout out to Schroeder for being more aggressive tonight. Nick Claxton, weird game for Claxton, 9 points, 16 rebounds. Offensively, he was really just non-existent. He's been that way for the last few games. But you know what? Despite him not being really there tonight on offense, we got to see Noah Clowney for 21 minutes tonight. If you want to take away another win aside from winning this game, Noah Clowney in 21 minutes with 6 points. I'm sorry, not 6 points. He had 7 points, 6 rebounds, 2 thunderous dunks. He did take, what did he take? He took 3 threes. He was 1 of 3 from 3-point range. but he was showing you a little bit of that potential, that raw, just sheer jumping ability, his explosiveness to the rim. That gave you some hope as a Nets fan. Jalen Wilson got extended run today. I would have liked to see him play a little better tonight, but in the start, 12 points, 4 of 10 from the field in 30 minutes, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Okay game for Jalen Wilson. Want to see him get more consistent with that shot beyond the arc. Who else played in this game? Oh, right. Mikal Bridges. We're going to get to all the Mikal Bridges related stories shortly. We will. But on a day where just rumors were swirling around the Nets, Shams Charania comes out. He has a story we'll get into shortly. Mikal Bridges could have made a statement tonight. There's been so many opportunities in the second half of this season for him to just come out and say F you to all of the haters, to all of the doubters. He puts up a 5 out of 15 from the field stat line, 3 out of 12 from three-point range, 13 points in 37 minutes. He has not played good basketball as of late. And, I said something, I tweeted something the other day about how disappointing this team is, more disappointing than the pre-Sean Marks teams, because those teams had no expectations. And I tweeted that, and some people agreed, some people disagreed with me, but I think that it really stems from, you look at the top of this roster, and yeah, Ben Simmons, you thought he was going to be available this year. He hasn't been. But Mikal Bridges, you thought he was an all-star. That's what people thought. I thought that. I did. And in the second half of this season, he has not looked the part. He has not lived up to expectations. I don't want to hear about how many games he's played in a row, or the fact that he played on Team USA over the summer. I don't want to hear that. Anthony Edwards also played on Team USA, and he's dominating. He doesn't really miss games, Anthony Edwards. I don't want to hear it. Jalen Brunson was on that team too. He was out for a little bit with an injury, but it's not an excuse. Mikal knows he can play better, and that's what's frustrating. So overall, this team not living up to their expectations. I think Mikal Bridges not living up to his expectations as the leader of this team. That's a huge part of their failure thus far. But disappointing effort from him tonight. I mentioned Trendon Watford's stat line. I thought he was great tonight. I thought he kind of had a few moments tonight where he showed that the Nets should have played him more throughout this season. He's a good player. He is. Day'Ron Sharpe didn't do much tonight in the win. Lonnie Walker, 0 points. And then Jacob Gilyard, 0 points in his 11 minutes with the Nets. Shout out to him, by the way, debut as a Brooklyn Net. Dorian Finney-Smith started the game really strong. I think he had like 7 points to start out. Finished with 11 points, 4-6 from the field. No one on Toronto worth mentioning. The high man was Gary Trent Jr. with 18 points. There's not a lot of offense in this game. 96-88 was the final score. Not a lot of offense. You beat a Toronto team that has a worse record than you. But for one night, the Brooklyn Nets were the best team in the country of Canada. So there you go. There you have it. We talked about the Nets win. Now we're going to get into some of these stories. Some of these stories that I read today, and I wasn't going to do a Nets podcast. Nick's busy. These solo episodes can be a bit lonely, can be a bit tough. I wasn't going to do it tonight, but too many stories coming out for me not to. Too much just bullshit about our Nets. So this next segment is called Truth or Cap. And we're going to go over some of these stories, and I'm going to tell you guys if I think it's truth or if it's a lie. So number one, Houston offered Jalen Green and 2 to 3 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, and Brooklyn said no. According to Shams Charania and multiple other NBA insiders, that story is true. And the Nets didn't leak that, because why would they? Why would the Nets leak that with the way Mikal Bridges is playing? Someone in the Rockets, I don't know, front office, somebody leaked it, because Jalen Green has been an absolute monster the last few weeks in the NBA. The Rockets are a game out from the 10th seed, the play-in tournament. And he looks like a formidable future option if you're the Houston Rockets. So, do I think this story is true or do I think it's cap? It's 100% true. I don't know if that specific trade was offered or what the actual trade was, but I do believe that the Rockets tried to get in touch with Sean Marks around a concept of Jalen Green and multiple firsts, albeit just 2 for Mikal Bridges. It looks bad now, right? At the time, I get it. Mikal's the face of our franchise. Why would we trade him? You know, he's a potential all-star in the East. Jalen Green isn't sniffing that game right now. I get it. I get it at the time if you're Sean Marks. But things can change quickly in the NBA. And I don't think that anyone has had a rougher second half of the season than Mikal Bridges. He's been pitiful. He's been tough to watch. And Jalen Green has been turning it up. So, yeah, I do think that's a true story. I do think some type of trade like that was offered, some type of concept. And I think it makes Sean Marks look really bad. And I think this is another strike on his record that will lead to his eventual firing. I do. I don't think a story like today comes out that the Nets could have had Jalen Green and multiple firsts for Mikal, and Sean Marks gets to keep his job. I don't see how that happens. So I do think this story is true. I think it makes the Nets look really bad, and I'm just happy we won tonight. I'm just happy we won because if you don't beat the Raptors tonight and you have this loss on your mind with all this negative shit going on, then yeah, we could have. We just got to get to the end of the season. You know, that's it. So I do think that story is true. The next story in Truth or Cap, and I thought this was a crazy random. Again, the Nets were just getting pooped on today. It was one of those days where everything that came up was just anti-Nets, anti-Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie was not permitted to run pick and roll plays or isolations while with Brooklyn per Shams Charania. Dinwiddie was essentially told in Brooklyn, no pick and rolls, no isolations. Okay, that's cap. That's a fucking lie. I'm calling bologna sandwich on that. Absolutely untrue. All right. If you watch the games, Dinwiddie was able to run pick and rolls and he was able to run isolation. Now I understand that throughout the year, Cam Thomas started to get more time with the ball in his hand. So did Mikal Bridges. Shout out to Eric Slater. He put out a clip of Jacques Vaughn talking about that, talking about, Spencer playing more off the ball, them being comfortable with that. And those two guys, MB and CT, handling the rock more. But there's just Spencer Dinwiddie was done with the Brooklyn Nets by the end. Maybe not from an analytics standpoint, or maybe that's not true because his stats were terrible. I don't know if it wasn't in the game plan to just totally phase him out or if it was, but he got touches. There were moments down the stretch in games where he'd decide to take over. He'd hit, he'd get 5 to 7 straight points. He'd start to get aggressive on offense. I refuse to believe that he was told no pick and rolls, no isolations. It's just no way. I think that's bullshit. I think he was probably told, hey, we're going to want Mikal and Cam to handle the ball more because Vaughn admitted that. And he was off the ball in Dallas. Dinwiddie was a stud. I thought that's how he was going to be this year because of Ben Simmons and trying to get him back in the fold. But, I do think that Dinwiddie got a little bit of an unfair shake here because he was expected to kind of do whatever the Nets asked. And I do think the Nets asked him to do a lot of different things on a lot of nights. And I can see how his role changing constantly frustrated him. I always saw that for Dinwiddie. But in terms of he was never, if he's not allowed to run pick and rolls in isolation, he's supposed to, what does he do when he touches the ball? Just pass it? And he did do that a few times. But no, I don't think that's a real story. I refuse to believe it. All right. This might be my least favorite story. And then we're done with Truth or Cap. That segment's over. This is just when it rains, it pours. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, if you're a Nets fan and you see this story, just so everyone knows the Knicks beat the Nets the other night. We're not going to talk about, the 6 straight losses before this Toronto Raptors win. I don't have the energy to talk about the losses. The Nets have been a shit team in the last 2 weeks. I think everybody on this roster and this organization will admit that. Every fan out there is livid at the fact that we keep losing games in the way that we're losing. We just run out of gas in the fourth quarter. We don't have the talent. We don't have the coaching. We don't have the roster. It is what it is. But it's worse this year because the Knicks are really fucking good. So for those who didn't see, Josh Hart, after the Knicks win, talked about Mikal Bridges being over there in Brooklyn. And basically what he said was, I'm paraphrasing, you guys know the Squidward meme of Squidward looking out at the window and he's looking at SpongeBob and Patrick having a blast and Squidward's sad and he wishes he can play with his friends. That is what Josh Hart described Mikal Bridges as Squidward. He said Mikal Bridges is Squidward. So Mikal, and I got to say, I really like the way Mikal answered this question. I thought it was the perfect response. And there's a few things I want to say about it, but I'm going to play the response to you guys and you tell me what you think in the comments. Shoot me a DM. I'll give you my thoughts. Here's Mikal Bridges on Josh Hart's comments about the SpongeBob meme.
Did you get a chance to see Josh Hart's comments the other day about SpongeBob?
Yeah, Josh plays too much. Just know he's a goof, man. He just plays around all the time, and he's doing what he says a lot of crazy stuff.
I mean, you know those guys well. I mean, is it kind of fun going back and forth with them when they say stuff and what you say privately? Like, it's just kind of fun going back and forth with those guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, we were close, but the league happens. You kind of get all over the place in different situations. But honestly, I think this whole situation and us both being in New York kind of brought us kind of back to each other and closer. I think USA helped as well, but I think them being in Knicks and me being in Brooklyn is like it kind of just sparked our friendship even more a little bit because in the league you can kind of people got families. Josh married with kids. Jalen just got married, so it's just like you start kind of separate a little bit. But it kind of brought us back, and it's funny. That's why all the jokes is hilarious, and everybody talk about the Knicks and stuff. I'm just like, bro, I'm like, y'all don't know Josh. It's Josh. Jalen's not saying anything. It's just Josh. So just know Josh. This is who he is, and he's gonna say jokes like that. And he knows he's gonna get everybody riled up, and he knows he's gonna get his fans riled up, and he's gonna get Brooklyn fans riled up. So that man's just hilarious.
Talk about sparking the friendship. What is it like to have that friendship and then the added rivalry piece to it? And what does that kind of bring to the friendship level?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I probably compete more harder against them than anybody else. That's just how it is. All them days of practice and all that stuff. You think we didn't like each other if you came to Villanova practice. But it's just how it is. We just compete really hard. Obviously, it's tough now because the situation and how they're playing, how we're playing. So they got the little up advantage right now. So they've been beating us and they kind of, had a little bragging rights, but, time would tell, all it takes a little bit of time. So just can't wait for that to flip one day.
Mikal,
it's a long clip. I apologize, about 2 minutes. Look, I get it, right? Like I hate it. We're never going to get back to the 90s era where guys just fucking hated each other on every team and wanted to fight every time they played. It's 2024. Okay, guys are friends. The rivalry stuff, it's great, but they're getting wine with each other after the game. They're going out to dinner. They're jumping on each other's podcasts. We have to accept that. We can't get mad at the fact that Mikal is friends with these guys. What sucks is the fact that there's three of them in DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson. They're playing for the Knicks, who are not only the more popular team in the state of New York, they're the better basketball team this year. And we have a guy in Mikal Bridges who's struggling as the number one for a struggling Nets team. Fans are hating on him. And I'm not saying fans are right or wrong, but right now, if you ask the consensus of Nets fans what they think of Mikal Bridges, they're going to say disappointed. They're going to say underwhelming. They're going to say not as advertised. That's just the reality of what's going on right now. They can say he was put in an unfair position. They can say he's tired. They can say he played too many games. But most Nets fans agree that he has not performed up to standard this year. And the one thing I liked about that comment is at the very end, he goes, we're going to flip. Right now they're up, we're down, but one day that's going to flip. That makes me happy. I like a guy that's able to talk like that when he's down. Michael Jordan said it takes a big man to talk trash when they're down. I would like to sort of see him talk a little bit more like that, be a little bit more competitive, and show it in those, in these games, the season's almost over. We don't have a lot of games left. But Mikal, you got to show us something. You got to show us something down the stretch. I got to see you erupt 1 or 2 games. It's just Frank Isola called him out before the game, and shout out to Frank Isola. I think he's great. He's just been too inconsistent this year. Just way too inconsistent. Way too many lows, a few highs. Yeah, so I don't know. Josh Hart's a troll, and he's a good troll. And I think if Nets fans have a villain on the Knicks, it's him. Like he is the one guy that loves to clown the Nets. You don't hear DiVincenzo or Jalen Brunson saying this stuff. As Mikal Bridges said, it's Hart. He is the stick in the Nets' craw. All those years that Richard Jefferson would talk trash. We own the Knicks. We never lost to the Knicks. Josh Hart is Richard Jefferson, but on the Knicks in terms of just the confidence. Right now they're better than us in every single facet of the game of basketball. They're better. Coaching, front office, players, they are better. Popularity, not close right now. So tough times for Nets fans. When it rains, it pours. It's been a rough second half. Nice to get a win in Toronto. Nice for Dennis Schroeder to get his revenge. It was the only way tonight can go. With all the negative shit going on, Mark's getting blasted for not taking that Jalen Green trade with Houston. The Nets getting blasted for not letting Spencer Dinwiddie run pick and rolls and actually play the point guard position, despite the fact that he was the point guard for a good amount of the season. And then finally, Bridges having to answer and respond to Josh Hart's SpongeBob meme comment. We've just been down bad this year. It's been one of those years, But shout out to everybody who's sticking with it. Shout out to everybody who's listening to the show, who's watching this team. Real fans, no matter what, stick with their team when they're down. I had drinks with a buddy of mine and a Nets buddy in Hoboken on Friday for March Madness. Me and the two guys and my one friend who's not currently a Nets guy. He grew up a New Jersey Nets fan, and when the team moved to Brooklyn, he decided he was going to stop rooting for them. And he doesn't root for anybody now. He's just an NBA fan. But I said, look, you made a choice. You made that decision. Whatever year they moved, you said I'm not going to root for them anymore. I said I'm going to stick with them because I don't care where they play. I'm a Nets fan. Whether they're in New Jersey, whether they're in Teaneck, playing at the Armory, whether they're in Long Island, whether they're in Brooklyn. I am a Nets fan, and I'm going to root for them no matter where they are. And that means rooting for them when they suck. And that means rooting for them when the roster's in disarray. And that means celebrating a win in Toronto against their C team with our B team. Shout out to Noah Clowney. Shout out to Trendon Watford. Shout out to Dennis Schroeder. The 3 stars of the night. You gave us Nets fans a little something to smile at for a second. Because trust me, there have not been a lot of smiles this year. But we're staying strong. We're doing our thing. Thanks to everybody for tuning in and listening tonight. If you need weekend plans and you don't want to watch basketball, Friday, Saturday night, I mostly blame myself. Nick Shanman's comedy sketch show. If you want a discount, let me know. I can get you maybe 50% off. Just shoot me a DM after the show and I'll hook you up. Thanks to everybody again and have a great night. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the fireside.